couldn't protect him this time. That was big news from Angelo. So I'm sure that is going to get around because Angelo came on the program and said that, which was pretty incredible, especially a guy who helped start WIP. I mean, Garry Cobb was coming up here next, was also on WIP for many years as a broadcaster too. And then obviously now with Fox 29. So we'll leave that there. But I say this to Garry here real quick before we bring him up. The Eagle defense gave up 36 points. How in the world do you get 5 turnovers? You run the ball for 200 yards. You score 33 points. And you lose. So I'm not going to set my question up for Garry. I want to hear his feedback. Fox 29's own Garry Cobb, our dear friend, one of my childhood idols. I'd love to that is Garry Cobb. And Garry, I just painted this thing out here. You go for 200 yards rushing, yet you give up 36 points. You have 5 turnovers. It's the first team, Garry, since 2010. Get this. It's the first team since 2010 to have 30 or more points, create 5 turnovers, and lose. What did you see in that game on Sunday?
Well, you know, the CJ Gardner-Johnson thing was huge for him to, you know, be out of there because you see the mistakes they were making in the secondary. You know, they weren't able to get really any serious and consistent pass rush pressure on Jaden Daniels, and he's the one that really, you know, took him apart. And you see he's throwing the guys that were wide open on that last play. How can you have somebody that open? It's because you got guys that don't know what they're doing back there. And see, CJ Gardner-Johnson, come on, man. Dude, stop it with the nonsense. This is not, you know, just joke football, man. You got all this on the line, and you're out here with the nonsense. You know, and you know, he likes the whole thing about this personality and everything. Dude, you got to shut that down because they were making mistakes back there in the secondary, and that's what really killed them because you at least have to know where you're supposed to be lined up. What are your responsibilities? But they brought in the kid 36. I mean, come on. Kid did not know what he was doing, man. And so
McCallum,
you got him back there, and he's making mistakes like that. And that's ultimately what killed them, you know, and you just cannot, come on, that's selfish. You know, you do something, whatever. The ref tells you, hey, stop this or stop that, because he got a penalty early, and he knows he's pushing the envelope. Like, you know, what are you doing this for entertainment purposes? But in the locker room, the dude never shuts up, man. Somebody's got to check him. Somebody on the team has got to check him.
Garry, he was tweeting and he was Instagramming in the locker room while the game was going on. During the game, and he was telling the refs, and he was going after the NFL refs while the game was going on. There just seemed to be a lack of discipline all over the place, even with Jalen Carter. I mean, some of the stuff that was going on, it just seemed really sloppy.
Well, this is what cost them that game. I mean, you know, that and the fact that, hey, Jalen, man, Jalen Hurts, you got to slide, man. You got to protect yourself because you're the most important person on the offense. You know, and you know, Kenny Pickett, he did the best he could. But there's so many things that Jalen brings to the offense, and he doesn't get credit for everything he does because just the threat of him keeping that ball and going bootleg, you keep the backside, you know, they're not able to take away the cutback.
That's right.
And that cutback is what Saquon has been hitting and taking it to the house. And so you take that all away. That threat is there. So they're able to, everybody's going after Saquon. You saw in the running game in the second half, they had nothing in the running game. You know, they weren't the team they had been because one of the things they benefit from is Jalen's ability to run. Even if he runs and they make the tackle on him, still that means they have to stay on that backside, and you give the ball to Saquon, and a lot of times he hits that cutback lane, and when he does, if he's full speed, he's got the speed to turn it on and take it to the house. So that's one of the things. Now, they got to sit down with CJ, and they got to have it out with him, man.
How about this, Garry? I think one of the things that you just mentioned, it's so important to realize. And again, I think sometimes but do you not agree that it's all 32 starting quarterbacks that when you miss a starter, the cliff dive, like when you lose an old lineman and you see Fred Johnson go in there, the fall off isn't monumental. But when you put a backup quarterback in, like you said, I think Pickett played great for what he is. For what he is. He's a backup quarterback.
He's a backup quarterback.
Like you said, they dropped the safety. Instead of having two safeties, they dropped the safety down, Gary, into the box. They were playing back there with one safety.
You're right.
If any legitimate quarterback was in the game, they'd have ripped that thing apart. So, I mean, you're right.
Everybody's got to be willing to sacrifice what they got to sacrifice to win. It's got to be about winning. It's not about you going out doing all this nonsense. That's not what it's about. You're too important to the team to do that. And like I said, I also got to get Jalen Hurts. Jalen, you got to slide, man. You got to protect yourself. You're too important to the team to get knocked out like that. But you leave yourself open when you don't slide. And they've got the rules in because the league wants to protect the quarterbacks. You got to take advantage of that. You've got to slide. When you're running like that, there are chances when you could get hit. But if you slide, they're going to protect you. And those are two key points. Those two guys, that's why they lost the game. Come on, they were ready to blow them out of there.
Yeah.
They were ready to blow them out of there. But but when Jalen's not in there, they had to limit the passing game. They had to limit what they could do because Jalen's able to take on the entire offense. Whereas when Kenny Pickett goes in there, he hasn't been practicing these plays. So that limits what they can do. And so you didn't see the Eagles team really, their offense, and it really says something about all the things they can do with their offense. They're capable of, they would have put a 40 spot up there, and they would have ran out the clock too. There's no way they could have come back.
How about this one too, Gary? I think it shows you, like you said, with all the intangibles that he brings to the offense. I'm talking Hurts. Yes. But it also shows you that, hey, man, 33 points, 200 plus yards rushing.
Yeah.
You weren't very good on third down. You were like 3 of 13 or something on third down. And the penalties, you gave up 100 yards. Doesn't that show you? It doesn't matter how many turnovers you get off that team. When you have 3 and outs and you have 10 penalties, you give the opposing team opportunities at drives. That's what lost that game. And he sustains those drives, doesn't he?
Yeah, he sustains those drives because they're able to run the ball more effectively. And they when they get the ball, they're going to have it for a while. The drives are going to be long. And the other thing that's going to happen is they're going to complete the drives with touchdowns. Those are not just going to be field goals. Those are going to be touchdowns where at the least they're going to drive the ball down deep into your territory and eat up a lot of the clock. And that's what happens. That's the kind of ball they've been playing. And that's why they've been winning so much, is because they wear down the other team's defense. They wear them down because they're always worried about Jalen running with the ball, hurting them. And he still was able to hurt them some, with his running. But the guy's got to play smart, and you got to be disciplined. Everybody's counting on everybody, and I don't know. These guys know about team ball, but you don't want to hurt your buddies.
No,
these are supposed guys you care about. You put everything into it, and you're going to go out there with dumb penalties. Dumb. Now that's CJ. Come on. I can see if you were hitting somebody, you hit somebody late or something, you're being aggressive. But no, you're back there running your mouth, and you get thrown out because you're running your mouth. That's
Gary. Don't you agree? Don't you agree that Jalen Carter is also starting to earn himself a reputation now with the refs? And my point was this, especially with Gardner Johnson, it's not so much you question what he did in the game. It's that the refs aren't going to give you the benefit of the doubt, no matter what, is because Draymond Green has a reputation. So Gardner Johnson has a reputation for talking shit. Now we're starting to see a couple weeks in a row here with Jalen Carter. You think has to be more addressed by the head coach here, a discipline issue when it comes to talking to these guys?
Well, definitely, Jalen Carter has put himself in that position. You know, the penalty he got, come on, the guy flopped. You know, the big offensive lineman, guy 330 pounds, you're not going to be able to just push him over. All of a sudden, he's falling. So, but the thing is, as you said, he put himself in that position because you got a reputation where they're looking at you. They're expecting you to do something stupid. And you got to, I mean, the guys got to care about their teammates. You know, who wants to be the guy that costs you the game? You know, you got to face your guys. I mean, all the stuff you put in to winning. And they've been putting everything in, guys out there working. Look how much they've gotten better. Everybody doing their job, and you are going to do things that just over stupid stuff. He hit the guy last week. The guy's got the helmet on. You didn't hurt him. You're not hurting a guy like that. So you got to play smart football, and it's got to all be about winning. And unfortunately, you know, I hate to say it, but, you know, you got guys where it's better to have less of a player in there playing that doesn't beat you like that with the stupid penalties and things, because those penalties kill you. And then especially if you got a guy that's been doing all the reps, getting all the reps. And that's why you look at the game with CJ Gardner-Johnson out of there and with Jalen out of there. Those two players out, it hurt them. And ultimately, that's what cost them. Because if those guys were in there, they would have won that game. They're a much better team than the Commanders. But you got to give them credit. They took advantage of the opportunities, and there were a lot of them they were given, and that's why the Eagles lost.
Garry, do you agree, though, that you walk away from this game going like this? It's self-imposed and self-inflicted here that you walk away going, that team wasn't the better team.
That's right.
Right now, it looks like the Eagles are playing against themselves. And I said this earlier, and I go, you know, it could have been the Commanders. It could have been the Panthers. The level of success that you have to have and what they've had for 2.5 months has been remarkable. You are going to have these kind of moments. So for you, do you just walk out of this, burn the tape, and walk forward and go, hey, let's address it. Let's talk about all this stuff here. We got Dallas coming up. A wounded Dallas. They played a lot better against the Bucs, and then you got the Giants at the end. That loss hurts us now because now we're behind Minnesota and Detroit for home field, though. But is that the game you just walk away from and go like this? Hey, man, let's just move on to Dallas now.
Well, that ultimately that's what you've got to do. You got to, talk to guys about making sure we do not beat ourselves, and CJ, maybe needs to put tape on his mouth or something, I mean, come on, shut up. And, you need other guys there on the defense. Hey, man, shut up. You know what I mean? Somebody's got to straighten them out because you can't have that. And with all the things you put into, you got to have the leaders. They've got to sit down and they got to have a talk with him because this team, even with that loss, they see that if they play the level they're capable of, they can win this whole thing. And if you got a chance that you're one of the teams with a clear opportunity to win the whole thing, whatever sacrifices you got to make, you make the sacrifice, But that's got to be the mentality, and guys got to talk to him going, do you want to be the guy that costs us a ring over some nonsense? I mean, yap, never shuts up. In the locker room, yap. You go in the locker room. Dude, would you shut up?
Garry, I blame him more for that loss than any player in the building, and I'll tell you why. Well, the replacement they targeted for the game-winning touchdown, and on top of that,
some of the other plays.
The other plays that you were in there, too, sportsmanlike. You got 30 yards in penalties. You had to replace a guy with a lesser guy. And by the way, I mean, the safety position, they attacked it the entire time, and that's where Daniels went across the middle. I mean,
that's right.
Notice in the numbers, Garry, he wasn't throwing to the numbers. He was throwing in the middle of the field to the safety position once Gardner-Johnson was out of there.
That's right.
So at the end of the day, you look at that player, and that player was monumental in that way that football team played. So I just ask, I mean, to me,
it's so hard to get there. See, it's so hard to get there. Come on. You got all these pieces in place where you got a chance to win this thing. You're clearly one of the best teams in the league. Now, aren't you going to be willing to go to that extra mile? Because it's so hard to get to that point. And clearly you got one of the best teams in the league. You're not going to lose it over something stupid, But that's ultimately what happened, because when he was out of there, they're attacking him, and you got miscommunication One of the reasons you got miscommunication because he's not in there. A lot of times you know what's going on when you're playing with guys you're comfortable with, you're used to playing with. You know, because you've already been through experiences with this coverage or that coverage. So you kind of know what's vulnerable. What do you have to, which way do you need to be leaning and things like that. And so you do not want to have backups in there in those positions. And so you just gave it to him over something stupid. And I don't know what he said, what it was about or whatever it is, but it's nonsense. What do you care about that? All this time you take to get to this point, and you're going to lose it over something stupid like that.
Garry, a couple last ones here for you. Barkley is about 260 yards shy of this record. And with home field the way it's playing up, they weren't able.
I don't know. Because I don't know if Jalen's going to play this week. Come on. We don't know that Jalen's going to play.
If Jalen doesn't play, do you play him?
Do you play Barkley?
Yeah.
Well, you know, that I think they will.
You're going to slam dunk. You're going to slam dunk the 2-hole. Do you play Barkley if Hurts doesn't play? Because the chances of you winning home field, look, the third team right now, look at the division winners that are going to be the Rams and the Bucks or anybody from the South can't catch the 2 seed. They can't catch it no matter what Minnesota does. Minnesota, get this, Garry. Minnesota could be a 14-2 or a 15-2 team or 15-3 team, 14-3, and a 5-hole team.
Yeah,
because they're a wild card team from the North.
That's right.
So if Hurts doesn't play and you're the organization, you want to get a little extra rest here and get more reps for Gainwell, maybe in Shipley against this Cowboy team, do you put your guns in there?
Well,
and maybe even rest Lane.
You might do that, but I tell you what, Jalen, you're leaning towards not playing him. You don't want him groggy.
No,
going later. You don't want that. You know, you want him sharp and healthy, and you don't want where he's, there's a maybe this, maybe that. If you're not sure, he doesn't play. And that's why I say there's a good chance he does not play because
Garry, you know this, when you have an injury, you're kind of like you're protecting that injury, and that's how you get another one.
Well, that's true. But like I said, with the concussion, come on, they're guarded about the concussions. That's why they went in and they didn't let him back in. They're guarded about. He's got to pass a rigorous test in order to get back on the field. They're not going to be playing around. And I got to give the league credit that they do that. You're protecting the guy for himself. And so I would say right now, I would lean towards chances are he's not going to play. So if he doesn't play, they're a different team. Their running game is not as potent because they don't have that run threat. And for Pickett to, you know what? Pickett, he had an injury too. What is it, ribs or something?
Ribs.
So they're looking at him too. So there's no guarantee that either one of them is going to play. I'll tell you that. Now, if that doesn't get your attention, and it lets you know though that Jalen's got to protect himself. If he's going to be running, it's got to be emphasized. And I know they probably emphasize it to him here on this one play. He doesn't, and all of a sudden he gets hit in the head. And his head hit off the ground. That's where the concussion occurred at. So,
you think it's a strong chance they don't play him against the Cowboys then?
I do. I mean, when I look at it, he's got to pass a test, and usually, that happens late in the week.
Yeah, Thursday.
Yeah, and so I would not be shocked if he does not play. I would not be surprised at all if Jalen doesn't play in this game because he's got to pass that test, and for his own, future and everything, they are not going to. If it's close, you better believe they're going to say, no.
But then does that affect the rest of the starters then? Do you put AJ and do you put Devontae out there with lesser guys? I mean, Garry,
I think they're going to be out. They're going to play. Yeah, I think they're going to play. Yeah.
So you would put the full unit, the five guys out there.
I think so.
And keep that rhythm going because you don't want to start looking like a preseason game.
Well,
because most likely you're going to be in the wild card round.
That's right. But when a guy gets dinged now, they are very guarded about it. And you got a guy like Jalen here, and as a team, they're not going to risk him being out anything later on, because later on you're talking about playoffs, and games, and they surely want him in there. They want him 100% when the playoffs get here. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're very guarded about letting him play on the upcoming game against the Cowboys.
Finally, are you concerned at all outside of the injuries and the undisciplined play?
Yeah.
This is nothing like 23 in your opinion, right? You don't feel anything here where there's something here where, again, you start to see things sliding. There's a better mentality.
I'll tell you, the defensive line in the pass rush, come on, what was that?
Yeah, that was terrible.
I mean, they weren't even, I mean, he was back there just standing there waiting and things. So that pass rush has got to improve. They're going to have some guys, that are getting healthy to come back and everything, but they got to give you more than that. They got to rush the passer better than that. And with the way that the secondary was playing, and you got guys not sure what they're doing, I think that the Commanders were pretty confident that they were going to have success.
Only Slade played well. I mean, the rest of them, I think they all got worked over. Yeah,
and they McLaren, beating the kid pretty bad over there, And this is a lesson, when you got a young team, and they've got to realize they got to be focused, and everybody's got to be realized we want to win. We're not letting anything else distract us. That's why CJ, dude, what are you doing, man?
Yeah, it's terrible.
Nonsense. Somebody said something to me, so I'm gonna get myself thrown out of the game because you said something to me, dude. Well, all we've done to get into this position where we're battling here for the number 1 seed, and you're going to get thrown out because somebody said something to you. If they can do that, they can get you thrown out of every game because somebody said something to you. Man, come on. It's just totally unprofessional, and that's losers. That's the way losers do.
Garry, I've got to ask you one. I want to sneak one in on you here. I asked Angelo Cataldi this, and I'm going to ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
Andy Reid, he's 14-1.
Yeah.
Is it the kid, or is Andy that good of a coach? Was he that good here, or is it the kid? Because look, I mean, he did a lot of great things with McNabb, but not enough. We all know that. But the kid just covers everything, man. I mean, he makes average players look great. Not that Donovan had superstar wide receivers on his football team outside of the 04 team with Owens. I got it. Yeah. Is it Reid, or is it the talent that Reid's around?
Well, I think, it's a combination of the two. It's not just, he's allowed to let Mahomes, really right now, Mahomes is almost running the whole show, when he's out there, because he's able to change play at the line of scrimmage. He sees things that a veteran quarterback's going to see, so he makes adjustments all the time like that. But I'll tell you this, their defense is a big part of it too. And Danny, who used to be up here, he's the defensive coordinator.
Steve Spagnuolo.
Steve. Yeah, I'm talking Danny. But Steve Spagnuolo does.
Yeah, he was on that Reid coaching staff with John Harbaugh.
I don't think he gets the credit he deserves. You look at the way they play. Plus, they create turnovers. They're very aggressive at the same time. They're smart. They play smart football. Now, do you see any of their guys getting thrown out of games and stuff like that? You don't see any of that nonsense like that. And they play smart football, but they play very aggressively. They will blitz at certain times. They'll take away what you like to do. They take it away. And so it's not just the offense. It's their defense that plays a major role in why they win all the time. And if you get in a big game with them, you better bring your best game because they are going to be prepared. They do a great job there. And that's one of the big things with Andy. He's very demanding. If you're going to be in there, you're going to know what you're doing if you're going in there, or you're not getting anywhere near the field. And so he's demanding, and that's why they're consistent. They win, but it's not just him. You see their whole team is demanding of everybody. You put on that uniform, you better do A, B, and C. They're not going to be tolerating this nonsense that you saw with CJ, or for that matter with Jalen, hitting somebody late. And they're going like, dude, man, we don't have any time for that kind of nonsense. And so they're all, team oriented, and that's why they win so consistently. Is They got everybody in there on the same page. They sacrifice for each other. And when they come out, you see them coming through the tunnel, they're prepared. And clearly, you had the injury, and those kids in back of CJ, not ready, man. Not ready for prime time. And you leaving people open. Oh, I thought you had a – look, you're supposed to be pros. You're supposed to know what you're doing. And you imagine the guys that the guys turn around and see you arguing. You left a guy wide open, man. Come on.
It was undisciplined football, and they got the Cowboys this week. So, hey, Gary.
And the Cowboys are playing well, too. The Cowboys are playing well. This is not going to be any kind of walkover.
No, so they took care of a team that beat the Eagles this past weekend and the Buccaneers. So, if you're going to head into this game, you better have your chin strap on because
that's right.
It's a rivalry football game, too. Merry Christmas to you and your family, Gary. I appreciate it, and I love you very much. Thank you so much, my friend.
All right, Dan. Go get him, baby.
Man. Thank you, Gary. I appreciate it. That is our friend, Garry Cobb. We appreciate him so much. Make sure you check him out on Fox 29. In Philadelphia, I've got a bunch of live if I'm not mistaken, Zander, I think we got a bunch of super chats that I got to get to too. Hey, Zander, whenever you want to jump on till the top of the hour, we'll do it now here, and we'll do some of these supers, by the way. But first and foremost, I want to get his takeaway. 24 hours removed, because this morning Zander told me before we went on here that he got a chance to watch the game again. And it's always good to do when you watch it live, and then when you go back and see it again, you get a chance to kind of go back, you get a chance to kind of watch some of the techniques, and you get to see some of the angles that some of the guys – I didn't think it was very good tackling. I watched half the game this morning, and I just didn't see it. It's like when Hurts went out, it took them a little bit to gather themselves, both defensively and offensively. So